The Subcommittee on Workforce Protections will come to order. I note that a quorum is present, and without objection, the chair is authorized to call a recess at any time. Today's hearing will examine the many issues and challenges of our country's paid family leave landscape. While the Family and Medical Leave Act, or FMLA, determines when an employee is entitled to unpaid leave to care for a new child or a sick loved one, or to undergo medical treatment, there is currently no federal law that outlines paid leave benefits. This is an issue that's personal to me, and I'm sure some may know, but many others on the committee do not. In the last 2 years, my wife and I have had firsthand experience in the challenges of raising a young family. Right now, my wife is able to watch our newborn daughter because of her company's paid leave policy. And we know that this practice makes an important difference for many in our community. And so we are enjoying that benefit, and she is able to stay home with our 2 children under 2, which is a task. And so if you're watching at home, honey, we love you, and thank you for doing what you're doing. Unfortunately, paid family leave has been out of reach for millions of Americans who are hoping to grow their families. According to the latest figures from DOL, only 27% of private sector workers in the United States have access to paid family leave benefits through their employer. This might be why we've seen growing momentum at the state level to provide tools for employers wishing to offer more paid leave to employees. In fact, more than 20 states and the District of Columbia have enacted paid leave programs that allow employers to access private insurance and offer paid leave to their workers. During my time as a Pennsylvania state representative, I was able to work on this issue, drafting legislation to create a tax credit to support paid leave at the state level. While these state innovations are encouraging, it has been difficult for state administrators and private sector benefit managers to navigate the patchwork of paid leave policies across different states. While one program may work in Maryland, Alabama likely has its own workforce challenges to manage. One state's approach may not be forced upon another state's workforce and vice versa. That's why we appreciate the Trump administration resuming its longstanding practice of issuing DOL opinion letters, which provide answers to real-world questions to help employers comply with the FMLA and the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's also why the House Bipartisan Paid Leave Working Group was created. Representatives Stephanie Bice and Chrissy Houlihan have been working alongside other group members to produce a common-sense bipartisan proposal at the federal level to improve paid leave. Last year, Representatives Bice and Houlihan introduced H.R. 3089, the More Paid Leave for Americans Act, which builds on years of the working group's efforts. The bill rests on several pillars, including establishing a public-private partnership and incentivizing coordination and harmonization of paid leave benefits across states through an Interstate Paid Leave Action Plan, or I-Plan. While there are no silver bullet solutions to the many challenges that families face in our workforce, we do recognize that H.R. 3089 could be an important attempt to coordinate state-level programs while dampening the flame of innovation with clumsy federal mandates. Together with policies like paid family leave and medical leave tax credits for employers, which was made permanent through the Working Families Tax Cuts, these policies offer a common-sense roadmap for federal action on the issue. I thank the working group members for their efforts. Today, we have expert witnesses who are going to be joining us, and they're going to be able to describe some of the challenges and shed light on potential solutions that the committee may consider. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you, and I would recognize and thank the chairman of the full committee for working with me to bring a hearing like this together. It's something that I talked about with the chairman when I first was elected to Congress at the beginning of last year. He's been a great chairman of the entire committee, doing a tremendous job, and we appreciate his support in having a hearing like this today, because you see the interest in the room, and it was exciting to come in and hear the chatter and the excitement that we have here today. I think there are going to be a lot of great ideas and perspectives that come out of a hearing like this. So just want to thank everybody for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to the ranking member of the full committee, who's sitting in for Ms. Omar, the ranking member of the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us today. Currently, the United States is one of the only wealthy countries in the world that does not guarantee paid family medical leave to workers. This is in a country where so many of the workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Over 100 million workers wake up every day not knowing whether they can afford to care for a new child or a sick parent. The majority don't know whether they can manage their own health without risking their job or finances. Not only do the vast majority of workers not have paid leave, but access to those benefits is also dramatically uneven. Low-wage workers and part-time workers are significantly less likely to have paid leave, as are working men and workers of color. Unfortunately, the unfortunate reality is that workers who need paid leave are the ones who are least likely to have it. Despite the grim picture, there have been victories for working people. Over the last 2 decades, we've seen multiple states step up and fill the gap left by the federal government. The District of Columbia and 13 other states have established their own comprehensive paid leave program. In fact, in Virginia, Democrats are on track to create a strong paid medical leave program for workers. It's now going through the legislative process, but that program would provide workers with up to 12 weeks of family or medical leave with up to 80% of their wages. The program would ensure paid time off for important reasons such as bonding with a new child, addressing a serious health condition, or caring for a loved one. That's what it looks like when we decide that families should not have to choose between a paycheck or caring for themselves and the people they love. But even with progress in some states, almost 3/4 of the states do not guarantee paid leave. What is also concerning is that some states are also ignoring comprehensive programs and instead trying to privatize paid leave through voluntary models. These voluntary models and partnerships with private insurance companies are low quality and have not meaningfully expanded access to paid leave. I appreciate the bipartisan interest in this topic, and as we review the different models for paid leave, we need to remember that now is the time for bold and meaningful action. We need to set a strong federal floor and provide certainty to millions of Americans through universal paid and family leave. If we truly want to expand access, we need to establish comprehensive, guaranteed benefits rather than waiting for states that have not acted in decades to create weak voluntary programs. And while paid leave is critically important, we also cannot act as if what we're discussing this morning exists in a vacuum. No matter what committee Republicans may say this morning, they can't get away from their record. Just last year, the Republicans made the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, just to fund tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy. Medicaid covers 41% of the births in the country, so we're discussing paid leave for new parents while also gutting health care coverage that makes those births safe and affordable. We're also talking about economic security, while at the same time nearly 4 million people are projected to lose their health insurance coverage and 20 million people are seeing their premiums skyrocket thanks to Republicans' refusal to extend the Enhanced Affordable Care Act premium tax credits. If we're serious about supporting caregivers and working families, we must be serious across the board, and we must do far better than the agenda that we've seen in this Congress championed by the Republicans. Paid leave, health care, nutrition assistance, child care are not separate conversations. They're part of the same promise that in the wealthiest nation in the world, working families should not fall into crisis simply because life happens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, all members who wish to insert written statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m. 14 days after this hearing. And without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such statements and other extraneous material noted during the hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. With that, we're going to turn to the introduction of our witnesses, and our first witness is Ms. Adrienne Schweer, a fellow for the Bipartisan Policy Center in Washington, D.C. Our second witness is Ms. Julie Squire, the Vice President of Policy and General Counsel at the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, also in Washington, D.C. Our third witness is Ms. Elyse Shaw, the Director of Education, Labor, and Worker Justice Team at the Center for Law and Social Policy, in Washington, D.C. And final, our fourth witness is Ms. Greta Kessler, the Vice President of Employee Health and Benefits at Marsh McLennan Agency in Chester, Maryland. Thank you for coming. You're the furthest testifier that we had today, so thank you for making the journey. And she is testifying on behalf of the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM. With that, we want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today, and we look forward to each of your testimony. Pursuant to committee rules, I will ask that each of you limit your oral testimony to a 3-minute summary of the written testimony which you have provided. As committee members may have many questions for you, the clock will count down from 3 minutes. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8D and committee practice, however, we will not cut off your testimony until you reach the 5-minute mark. I would like to remind each of our witnesses to be aware of their responsibility to provide accurate information to the subcommittee. And with that, I will recognize our first witness today. Ms. Schweer, you are recognized for your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman McKenzie, Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Chairman McKenzie, I want to thank you for asking Mr. Wahlberg long ago to have this hearing. It's tremendous leadership. Very exciting to hear first thing this morning. My name is Adrienne Schweer. I'm a fellow at the Bipartisan Policy Center, which is a nonprofit think tank that works with advocacy affiliate BPC Action to advance bipartisan solutions for the nation's most pressing issues, including those that affect workers and their families. Being here today is personal for me. It's more than policy. Nearly 10 years ago, while working at the Department of War, I hemorrhaged while 12 weeks pregnant and experienced a high-risk pregnancy with my daughter, Georgia. I took every sick and vacation day I had to keep her healthy in my belly and to term. And upon the birth of Georgia, who is healthy in here today, I had very few days left. And a colleague of mine, Julie, donated a few weeks, and I was able to take a little over 4 weeks of leave before I returned to the Pentagon. During that time, right when I came back, much like your daughter is today, I was exhausted from a newborn. I was barely healed from the birth. I was struggling with the stress of postpartum, and I realized that I was lucky. Here in America, it's estimated that 1 in 4 women is going back to work after just 2 weeks post-giving birth. And I wanted to be part of the solution. So I joined BPC and an amazing ecosystem of people who care about this issue. And we've been trying to advance these policies here in Congress for the last nearly a decade. We've helped ensure that whomever has that job of mine at the Pentagon and all federal workers have 12 weeks of parental leave, expanded an employer tax credit and made that tax credit permanent, helped provide emergency paid leave during the pandemic, and increased workplace accommodations for pregnant women. I'm really proud of that, but it's not quite enough. As you mentioned, there has been a bipartisan working group led by Ms. Bice and Ms. Houlihan here, and Ms. Stevens and Ms. Letlow from this committee have been active participants. And that group has put together a really bold framework of bipartisan legislation that would help increase coverage of workers around the country. And I'm very excited to talk about both 2 of those core policies, the More Paid Leave for Americans Act and the Interstate Leave Network Act, which I think will demonstrate how federal policy can support working families, encourage cooperation, and expand access of paid leave. I'm really excited and hope that this committee will be able to move those bills forward. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you. I'll now recognize Ms. Squire for your testimony.
Chairman McKenzie, Chairman Wyden, and Ranking Member Scott, thank you for inviting me to testify on behalf of the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, NASWA. NASWA is the nonpartisan and nonprofit association of the workforce agencies in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. territories. My testimony today touches on NASWA's work with paid leave and provides an overview of the state paid family and medical leave landscape and NASWA's perspective on possible federal support. NASWA has expanded its involvement in paid leave based on member needs. Last year, we elevated our paid family and medical leave work group to a full NASWA policy committee. Comprised of paid leave administrators and workforce leaders, NASWA's paid family and medical leave committee includes representatives from 21 states, and they meet regularly to discuss common priorities and share promising practices. Moving to the paid leave landscape, as noted by Chairman McKenzie, states have passed their own programs in the absence of federal standards. The very first paid leave program started with 5 states and Puerto Rico passing temporary disability insurance programs, and they provide access to partial pay for people who are unable to work due to a non-work-related need. Hawaii and Puerto Rico still administer temporary disability insurance. In the 2000s, states started to add leave programs. Currently, a total of 13 states and the District of Columbia have passed state-paid family and medical leave. The most recently implemented programs are Minnesota and Delaware, with both states having launched on January 1st. Maine is set to offer benefits later this year. State leave programs are typically administered through a state workforce department. While funding for paid leave varies by state, in general, benefits in the program are funded by a tax, either on the employer, the employee, or a combination of both. Qualifying reasons to receive benefits can also vary by state, but in general, provide partial wage replacement up to a certain number of weeks for individuals who have a medical need for themselves, a loved one, or to spend time with a newborn baby or adopted child. State legislatures in at least 11 states are actively considering legislation for new state leave programs. In addition to the state-run programs, New Hampshire and Vermont have adopted a public-private partnership model where the states purchase insurance that employers or individuals who are not covered in that state can use. Another option is what has been done in other states. 8 other states have passed laws authorizing the sale of paid leave insurance in their states. As more states move forward with paid family and medical leave programs, federal support could address challenges and promote coordination. As mentioned, the House Bipartisan Family Paid Leave Working Group has been working on this, and in 2024 issued a policy framework. The second pillar of the framework is to promote coordination and harmonization of paid leave programs. Our NASWA Paid Family Medical Leave Committee is a direct result for the need for increased communication, discussion, and collaboration among the states. Because we recognize this need, NASWA has been supportive of the bipartisan group's efforts. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, and next I'll recognize Ms. Shaw for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman McKenzie, Chairman Wahlberg, and Ranking Member Scott, and the members of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee. My name is Elyse Shaw, and I'm the Director of Education, Labor, and Worker Justice at the Center for Law and Social Policy. It is an anti-poverty organization that promotes effective federal and state policy for families and individuals with low incomes. I am truly honored to come before the subcommittee to speak to the importance of paid family and medical leave for all workers. I bring to this testimony almost 15 years of expertise on paid family and medical leave, both at the state and federal levels, including overseeing the Paid Leave Administrators Network at CLASP and providing technical assistance to Congress, including the House Bipartisan Paid Family Leave Working Group during my time at the U.S. Department of Labor's Women's Bureau. I can also personally attest to the importance of access to paid family and medical leave. When my daughter was born in 2014, unlike the majority of Americans, I was lucky enough to have access to paid leave through my employer. Being able to stay home for those first 4 months gave me the space to learn how to properly latch while breastfeeding, taught me the importance of tummy time, and gave me the time and space to properly address my own physical and mental health needs with postpartum depression. The ability to take time to be with my family and care for my own medical needs while getting paid and knowing I had a job to go back to was invaluable. My story is not unique. Almost all working people will experience a caregiving need at some point in their lives, whether to welcome a new child, care for a seriously ill loved one, or to treat their own serious illness. And while paid parental leave is needed, it is not enough for the majority of caregiving needs that workers will actually need to take. Only a quarter of leaves under FMLA are for parental leave, but over half are for medical leave, and 1 in 5 is to care for a family member's serious health condition. An expanding share of Americans are also sandwiched caregivers, those caring for an aging or ill family member while also raising children of their own. Evidence shows that access to paid family and medical leave can improve health of mothers and children, reduce racial disparities in wage loss between workers of color and white workers, improve employer experience by improving employee retention and reducing turnover costs, and increase women's labor force participation. And yet, only 1 in every 4 private sector workers has access to paid family leave through their employer, leaving 106 million without dedicated time to welcome a new child or address a loved one's needs. While the rising cost of living, basic necessities, and childcare, paired with the largest cuts to Medicaid and SNAP in U.S. history, economic supports families rely on to afford their basic needs, establishing a federal floor for comprehensive paid leave is more critical now than ever. While I appreciate the efforts of the House Bipartisan Paid Family Leave Working Group, the recently reintroduced More Paid Leave for More Americans Act does not go far enough. The bill establishes a paid leave grant program, providing the opportunity for some states to receive grants that are neither large enough nor comprehensive enough to create accessible paid leave for all. And we know what works. Over the last 2.5 decades, 13 states and the District of Columbia have led innovation in comprehensive paid family and medical leave. Programs have incorporated lessons learned from earlier models, other states, and firsthand experience. In fact, states have already been working together and regularly meet, often through CLASP's Paid Leave Administrators Network, to discuss and implement best practices. A federal paid family and medical leave program should build on these learnings and include the best practices concerning eligibility, qualifying reasons, duration, anti-retaliation, wage replacement, and family definitions. Congress must do more to solve the gaping hole in our nation's families' policies, ensure that everyone who needs access to paid family and medical leave will have it. That is why I urge Congress to support the Family Act, which builds on lessons learned from states. Caregiving, whether paid or unpaid, is the backbone of our economy. And I thank you for your time and look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Lastly, I will recognize Ms. Kessler for your testimony.
It's not counting down, sorry. There we go, okay. Chairman McKenzie, Chairman Walberg, and Ranking Member Mr. Scott, and the members of the subcommittee, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today on paid leave. The hearing is an important step to understand what paid leave means for today's workplaces. I speak today as an expert in benefit management, working with employers of various sizes, various industries, and a longtime member of SHRM and its advocacy team. It's important to recognize that the workforce continues to face significant talent shortages. In 2025, nearly 7 in 10 organizations reported that they have difficulty in recruiting full-time employees. They affect innovation, increase employee stress, and threaten long-term organizational viability with short staffing. As competition for talent persists, employers must also offer meaningful benefits that reflect real-life needs. Paid leave has become an essential part of attracting talent and retaining it. SHRM's 2025 Employee Benefit Survey shows 81% of employers rate leave as very or extremely important. This is not an option, and our workplaces have evolved. Meaningful access to paid leave varies due to administrative and financial constraints, mostly in the smaller and mid-sized employer organization. Expanded leave for parental bonding, family caregiving, and mental health needs continues to grow. There are employees that are in a sandwich generation also caring for parents in addition to their own children. At the same time, the demographic trends continue to increase for demand on accessible leave, also with chronic illnesses of employees increasing and juggling that as well. However, challenges remain. The federal public policy does not always provide adequate support. While many employers want to do right by their employees, administering paid family leave is complex, particularly for organizations operating across multiple states. Mandatory programs exist in 13 states plus Washington, D.C., but each have differing eligibility rules, benefit formulas, and administrative requirements. Employers also must coordinate these programs with federal laws such as FMLA, the ADA, and state short-term disability symptoms, creating burdens that constrain resources already in a limited capacity. We feel there are promising proposals that seek to harmonize these state programs while preserving employer flexibility, such as iPlan. This is a positive first step as it aims to reduce the complexity by creating shared standards. As this proposal and future iterations move through the legislative process, public-private collaboration will be essential. HR professionals and business leaders bring firsthand experience designing and administering leave benefits, helping to ensure policies are practical, sustainable, and effective. In conclusion, paid leave is a critical pillar of workforce policy, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Under Committee Rule 9, we will now ask questions of the witnesses under the 5-minute rule, and I will recognize myself for the first 5 minutes. The importance of this hearing today can't be understated. As the title lays out, many families and working parents across this country are challenged with balancing both careers and care at home. And the last time a hearing was held on this topic, I should note, was back in 2020, so it's been long overdue that we would be reconvened here to discuss this issue. The first question I have is for Ms. Schweer. You had laid out in your testimony some of why you got into this space and became an advocate. Can you go into a little more detail on what the Bipartisan Policy Center has found in this issue, whether it's through any academic research or public opinion polling?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, sir. We found that over 60 million Americans are balancing work and caregiving every day. Some of them are caring for a young child, and some of them are caring for aging loved ones, and some of them are sandwiched in between both, which I think is one of the hardest parts of parenthood right now. One of the things that we have found in our polling and in our research is that, especially for parents of young children, they're looking for flexibility. They're looking for flexibility in ways to manage caregiving and work. We're also finding that access to paid leave and affordable childcare keeps them connected to the workforce. So one very interesting statistic that we found coming out of the pandemic was that people would have been especially new parents, would have been much more likely to go back to work after having left it permanently if their employer had offered paid family leave. At the time, it would have kept them connected to the workforce. If it had existed, they would have gone back even after taking some leave. So we've definitely seen it as an important tool in keeping people connected to the workforce who want to be connected, giving them kind of safety and security to overcome some of those caregiving challenges, whether they be for young children or aging loved ones, and providing financial security for them in those tough times.
Great, thank you. Ms. Squire, I'll go to you as a former state representative. I appreciate your state-level perspective on this issue, and we recognize that every state has their own unique labor policy and structure. And so what are some of the challenges you see that state workforce agencies have encountered while trying to administer paid leave programs, maybe with adjacent states or other issues that arise?
At NASWA, we see firsthand, especially as more states add paid leave programs, the need for and desire for more interstate coordination. So states are really interested in coordinating on such topics as shared definitions, improved administrative work, so that the environment can be clearer for both those applying for leave and for employers. So I'll just give one example, especially for adjacent states, there's definitely a concern about confusion. So if you're an individual applying for leave, we want to make sure that it's not confusing for you. One question is, so how long did I have to work in order to qualify for benefits? Well, that answer can vary state by state. So something like the iPlan could work on focusing on helping states to have common definitions, common eligibility provisions, perhaps work on some type of interstate plan so that states, especially if there are wages in both states, where a state could take a claim for another state, or at a minimum, having some type of communication where it would be clear for those who are looking into it, what state do I apply to? And then I'll just add, on the employer side, there's a lot of interest in having more commonality, and perhaps in the area of documentation or when the employer needs to respond to a request for a claim, that's an area where I think states could get together and find commonality to make it easier for the employer community.
Thank you. We have about 1 minute remaining in my questioning for Ms. Kessler. Unfortunately, in every program, there are individuals that try to take advantage of benefits. Obviously, we want to make sure they're there for those that need them, but there are bad actors out there. Do you ever see that occurring in the paid leave benefits that are offered at the state level? If you can hit your microphone, please.
2 for 2. That's a good point, and we certainly see that because of the complexities of paid leave across multiple states with the lack of consistency, again, as was mentioned with all of the rules. Differences in eligibility rules, the different documentations required really does allow individuals to stack leave. So we really, rather than use them concurrently, which is really what was intended in the first place. So the increase for that makes it harder for employers and administrators to detect those patterns of abuse, meaning that if we could weave together, federal support, we could eliminate those risks.
Thank you. With that, my time has expired, and next we'll go to the ranking member, Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. Since the beginning of his second term, President Trump has launched a vicious, systematic campaign to dismantle the federal government, stripping away the protections and services it provided to Americans. This administration has gutted the Department of Labor, firing essential workers, targeting field offices, canceling federal grants, and shutting down entire agencies, including the Women's Bureau, which managed paid leave grants in the past. The reason I mention this is because here on Capitol Hill, we focus on reforming laws and establishing new programs, but we cannot forget about the agency workforce we rely on to oversee new regulations and administer these programs. Ms. Shaw, prior to your current role, you were actually at the Department of Labor's Women's Bureau. Based on your experience, if there is going to be action on paid leave on a federal level, we must keep in mind what should we keep in mind in terms of this administration?
Thank you for your question. I think first we have to have faith that the administration will keep its word and send the grants out as they are written. As I saw firsthand at the Women's Bureau, the Trump administration has no problem canceling congressionally mandated grant programs, and including a grant program through the Women's Bureau on paid leave to support the Paid Leave Administrators Network. They canceled 25 active grants, so that's number one. I have the utmost faith in the Department of Labor's career staff, but as you mentioned, the staff has been gutted, including the Women's Bureau. The Women's Bureau has lost 2/3 of its staff, which is a huge drain on your paid leave expertise at the federal level. And so I point this out just to say that if we're going to have a grant program, we have to be very aware of how it actually gets administered and who is doing the administration. I would like to see a lot more safeguards. I know how grants are written, how they are scored, and how they are put out. I have conducted all of those at my time at the Department of Labor, and it is a meticulous and time-consuming process. So it needs fully staffed and fully knowledgeable staff about the topic that it is being administered.
Mm-hmm. I'm a strong supporter of universal paid leave because no one should have to choose between paying their rent or taking care of their family. This is not a choice that a wealthy country should be forcing its workers to make. But that's exactly the situation we put Americans in. This is a moral and a policy failure, but it is solvable. I believe Congress should establish a national floor. And I'm proud of states like Minnesota that have not waited and taken action to provide paid leave. In fact, Minnesota's paid leave policy is one of the most progressive programs in the country. An important note about Minnesota is that it primarily relies on a public paid leave program. Unfortunately, there are some states moving in the opposite direction and privatizing paid leave, which concerns me. Ms. Shaw, what are the downsides of privatizing paid leave, and what kind of successful models should Congress actually be encouraging?
So there is a deep divide between those who have access to paid leave through an employer and those who don't. It's mostly those in hourly, low-wage jobs that are least likely to have access. And as we've seen, as more programs have gone out with voluntary opt-in, it's not enough. So New Hampshire is a public-private partnership. 2024 data revealed that the creation of this partnership led to no meaningful increase in the usage of leave. Only 3% of New Hampshire workers were enrolled in the voluntary program, and fewer than 1 in 5 had even heard of it. And so I really would, like I said prior, really urge Congress to set a very solid, comprehensive federal floor, one that really standardizes across the bar and makes sure that those who earn low wages, people who are, working and cannot afford to take off unpaid leave, not only have access to it, but know about it. So comprehensive outreach education programs about what it is and how you access it, including multilingual outreach.
Yeah, appreciate that. I agree. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn to Chairman of the Full Committee, Mr. Wahlberg from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the panel for being here. Ms. Kessler, with your experience in the field working with especially small and mid-sized employers, the capacity and cost is a challenge, I would assume, for them when offering paid leave benefits. What specific challenges do small businesses face in this area? And then could you also help us understand how government can work with these small employers to increase paid leave access for employees without imposing unworkable and highly costly compliance burdens on these businesses?
Thank you for your question. So there is a pretty universal rule that a lot of HR departments are a department of one in this space. So there's one person who has to deal with all of the different fragmented rules across multiple states. Generally, most employers that we see have employees in multiple states. They may have a home base that has a mandated federal leave or state leave, but again, hire workers that have different requirements and restrictions across multiple state lines. There are compliance concerns, which a department of one in HR are really ill-equipped to handle, and they could really use some support in that. Financially, there are organizations that are in the smaller market that may not even have one HR practitioner. So you have a CFO or a CEO trying to figure all of this out. The smaller companies and mid-sized companies also do not often have financial capital to reinvest in really sophisticated programs to track and administer all of this, leading to, again, they want to comply, they want to be providing everything that's required, but there's just no capacity for it. They don't have the financial resources or the operating capital. In terms of the employees, I really feel that overall, this can be really settled with, again, a federal support system that's also helping to verify the identities of the people that are applying for these paid leaves. Again, back to trying risk mitigation. But the small and mid-sized employers really don't have the resources to do that, so they do need that help.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schweer, it's nice to see your family with you today. Enjoying practical government experience. Government can't and shouldn't do it all. That's what your organization very, very clearly stated in its guiding policies. What role should the federal government and state governments have with regard to private sector businesses wishing to offer paid leave benefits?
Thank you for your question, sir. We at the Bipartisan Policy Center have spent the last nearly the decade working on bipartisan solutions that we hope will be lasting. We've been looking to the federal government to create policies that we think will incentivize businesses and encourage more access to paid leave, but not have harms built into them that might negate the policy's continued future or create a political lightning rod. We think that the federal government can still play a really important role in increasing access to paid leave. And the policies that we've been able to do in the past, like extending a permanent tax credit for employers that want to offer paid leave for employees that make less than $75,000 a year, those who are less likely to have it from their employer naturally, we think those are good carrots. We also are really excited about the policies that came out of the House Working Group because they will incentivize states to take their own pathway forward in this competitive block grant. Not every state is going to have a policy that looks exactly the same, and we've seen that in the 20 that have helped design them for their own constituents. And we love the I-Plan because we think it's really important for states to be able to share best practices. These are very complicated policies. We have 25 years of FMLA experience that groups like Ms. Kessler's have helped so many people around the country navigate. They're really complex, and we think if state administrators can share best practices, that we will see a flourishing of state policies that really map to what that state is able to do.
Okay. Thank you. I see my time is expiring. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to all the kids here today, I hope you're getting extra credit for having to sit in a hearing like this. We appreciate you being here. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Fine from Florida.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, a lot of times as I sit on this committee, I get to brag about Florida. And today is going to be one of those days where we talk about how Florida leads the way. We're one of 8 states that has voluntary paid family leave ability for companies to do it. And I would note that we do this in Florida with a state budget that is smaller than the city of New York. And we have about 1/3 the number of people. In fact, the budget of the state of New York is twice the size of the budget of the state of Florida. And this year, I believe the budget of the state of Florida will actually shrink. Yet somehow, with all of this, we've figured out how to be one of 8 states that allow employers to do voluntary paid family leave. Now, this is also intensely personal to me. My career before I got into politics, I was an entrepreneur. I started, built, and grew 3 companies. I was the first employee of all 3. And guess what? When you're worried about having to pay yourself, it's hard to take on the obligation to pay for others. Now, I know that so many of my Democratic colleagues have never had a real job in their lives. They've never had to go through the struggle of having to start a company, having to create payroll, understanding that if you don't make that payroll for your company, you're going to close. But those of us who live in the real world have had to. And they can politic all they want, but I would note this. Last year, when we passed the working families tax cut, we made permanent a tax credit for every company that chooses to offer 2 weeks of paid family medical leave. We made permanent something that was created in the first Trump administration. And every single Democrat voted against it. Let me say that one more time. Last year, in the working families tax cut, we voted to offer a tax credit to employers who do paid family medical leave, and every single Democrat voted against it. So now I want to talk about Florida. Ms. Schweer, my question is for you. I mentioned that Florida implemented a voluntary paid leave framework. It avoids mandatory payroll contributions, gives employers flexibility to participate through private options. No employer is obligated to do that, but employers can do it if they choose to do so as part of their wide-ranging employee benefits. They buy it as their own policy, as part of a group, or as an add-on to a disability policy. From your perspective, what lessons can Congress learn from what we have done in Florida, and how can we ensure that any federal action doesn't screw up what we're doing in Florida, does not increase costs or administrative burdens?
It's a great question. I think one thing that you'll find across the 20 states is that all the state policies, like Florida's, have left space for private insurers to provide paid family leave. And private insurance, short-term disability insurance, covers a lot of workers for medical need and new moms for maternity leave. And there's 50 years of experience with that policy. And there's a lot in the private insurance market that Floridians are experiencing that is a little bit different than some of the state-run programs. For example, they have customer service entities that really help you navigate the complex paperwork as an individual if you're receiving that. They, on the medical leave side, provide a lot of really important interventions that can help you ensure you don't have a secondary fall or recover faster or get that physical therapy that you need. So there are some really intrinsic benefits to the private insurance market that all the policies that we've championed at the bipartisan level have tried to leave space for, because they add a lot of value and they have 50, 60 years of data with them. I would also note that in the permanent tax credit, the coolest part about it to me is that it was bipartisan from the very beginning, and there were House and Senate champions on both sides, and that's where we've seen lasting policies at the federal level, things that don't negate great work at the state level, may they be Democratic-run states or Republican-run states like Florida right now, and that they leave space for states to continue to thrive, but increase access to paid leave for as many people as possible, which is what we're angling for.
Sure, and I would close with this. I understand. I said I never offered paid family leave. It's actually untrue. I did. I offered it to one employee in my third company. It was my wife who, when she left, in order to have our first son, she said she was going to come back to work in 3 days. I said, it's not for me to tell you what to do if that's what you want to do. But before she left the hospital, she said, this is what I want to do. I want to raise our children. And that's what she went and did. I believe that in a world where we have declining birth rates, we need to make it easier for families to have children. I think the challenge for us is to make sure we do that while not destroying what it means to start, build, and grow a business. I think that's where you're going to see Republicans pushing those solutions. And so thank you all for being here, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Ranking Member of the Full Committee, Mr. Scott from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the gentleman from Florida for reminding people that that big ugly bill passed with only Republican votes. It provided massive tax cuts for the wealthy, massive cuts in Medicaid and SNAP benefits, and of course, you could find some microscopic little good things in there, but overall, it was a big ugly bill. And I thank the gentleman for reminding people that every Democrat voted against it. Ms. Shaw, one of the shortcomings in the present federal law that provides medical and family leave is it's unpaid. Another shortcoming is that a lot of people don't qualify. I understand it's 44% of the people qualify. Why are the other people not qualified to take that leave?
The requirements for meeting eligibility, it limits to employers who have 50 or more employees. So technically, in the organization I work for now, I do not qualify for FMLA. We only have 40 employees. And it has just the really constraining areas of, how long you've worked at the location, and it leaves out so many small businesses. If you are an employee or if you are a small business owner, you do not qualify for FMLA.
Thank you. Does HR 3089 fix that?
It does not. It does not fix that. HR 3089 is actually not a paid leave bill. It is a paid leave grant program. And the parameters for the grant program actually set eligibility for states below what FMLA is. So you can qualify if you only provide 6 weeks of leave. And the eligibility standards of the companies remain the same. So again, only 44% would be eligible.
Does the leave have to be paid?
The leave under
3089.
If it's parental leave, yes, it is paid. It has to be paid parental leave. You can get paid parental leave, but again, the floor is set at 6 weeks of paid parental leave only.
Are states required to give workers the right to return to the same or similar job position? And if and how would that compare to what most states have?
No, there is no requirement for job protection, and this is actually a really, really important component of paid leave. A lot of workers face a retaliation for taking leave, and if they don't have job protection, oftentimes they don't take paid leave. CLASP will actually have a forthcoming report about workers' experience in the South taking paid leave, and they find overwhelmingly that people do not ask for paid leave because they fear retaliation, cut hours, job loss, among other things.
If it's going to be paid, it should be paid. Some research says about 80% of the low and middle class workers. What is the requirement under 3089?
It would require, states could be eligible for the grants if they pay as low as 67% of your wages for a family of 4, which is far below what we know is best practices to help keep people out of poverty.
Now, one of the things that I think most of the programs have is that the burden of the paid family medical leave is not on the employer, but on some outside entity like an insurance company. Why is that important?
When you think about the privatization of paid leave, we see that it causes a lot of confusion, and also when you have privatized plans, the public-private partnership doesn't always lead to what we want. When we think through, like I said, New Hampshire and Vermont's programs, you see the lowest take-up of paid leave. When it's administered by the state government, there's a lot more education and outreach that is done by the government to let people know what their options are and what the ins and outs are of the paid leave programs and who is eligible.
So that's if it's paid for by the state entity rather than a private insurance company?
Yeah, and usually, we say paid for by the state entity, but usually it's a tax program where either, both employee or employers are paying into the system as well.
Like workers' compensation when you lose your job?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Mr. Messmer from Indiana.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for witnesses for being here today. Ms. Schweer, I understand that you served as the Chief of Protocol at the Pentagon. What unique challenges do military families experience when accessing paid family leave?
That's a great question. No more than a decade ago in the military services, each service had a unique paid leave. Some of them were 6 weeks for new moms. There was a movement at one point for some of the services to go a little bit beyond to about 16 weeks. About 8 years ago, that was centralized for all parental leave to be about 12 weeks, but only for one parent. And the challenge we saw after that policy was that there are a lot of families where both the mom and the dad are in the military, and there was only paid leave for one of those parents. And so what we've seen over the last 8 years is some really bold efforts by Congress to increase paid leave coverage for active duty service members. It started by covering both parents for potentially up to 12 weeks. It extended to help support members of the Guard and Reserve. And I actually think the paid leave data coming out of the military is really exciting because we're seeing attachment to the workforce, some really good, it's reinforcing some of the important data that we see from the private sector about employee satisfaction and happiness when they return to work, their productivity. So it's been a really good case study.
Were those 12-week programs typically parental leave, or were they broader application?
Right now, they're parental leave. The military does have family caregiver and bereavement leave, but it's not the same. It's been mostly parental leave expansion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Squire, in your written testimony, you discussed the benefits of interstate coordination provided by policies like the Interstate Paid Leave Action Network. These benefits include compliance assistance for employers, improving the employee experience, and working towards shared definitions and administrative processes across state lines to prevent fraud. How would reducing fraud allow employers more freedom to offer paid leave to their employees?
Excuse me. So by reducing fraud, that makes sure that the benefits are used by those who need them, and it also makes sure that taxes can be what is it needed to support the program and not more. So I think that there's a lot the I-Plan could do for states to work together to prevent fraud in these programs, and that would, of course, really make sure that funds are used in the best way possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your responses, and I yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you. And at this point, we do not have any other members who are looking to ask questions unless anybody else on your side planning to join? No? All right. Well, want to thank everybody for joining us today. And so with the closing of questions and witness testimony, we will head to our closings. And I, again, would like to thank all of our testifiers for being here today. The first closing statement will come from Ranking Member Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again to our witnesses for speaking with us today. We have heard today that the policy behind paid family leave And medical leave can be complicated. But for working families, it is not complicated at all. It's about whether you can care for your newborn child. It's about whether you can be there for an ailing parent when they need you the most. It's about whether you can recover from an illness or injury without losing your home. 13 states from California to Minnesota to Maine have shown that a comprehensive guaranteed paid leave program is not only possible, but it is popular. It works for both families and businesses. What hasn't worked are voluntary and privatized schemes that leave millions of workers behind. And we should be clear-eyed about the risk of enshrining those flaws into federal policy and permanently setting a ceiling where there should be a floor. The question before us is simple. Do we believe that every worker in America deserves the same basic security? Or do we accept a patchwork system where your ability to care for your family depends on where you live and who you work for? In the wealthiest nation on earth, no one should have to choose between their family, their health, and their livelihood. This is our moment to act, not with any timid steps, but with a bold universal guarantee that working people deserve. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman,
Ranking Member Scott.
ask unanimous consent that the gentlelady from Illinois be allowed to ask questions.
Without opposition, so granted. We're going to go to Ms. Miller for a couple just final questions.
Okay, thank you
It's a busy
so much.
day today. We appreciate
Yes.
you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. This goes without saying, the family is the most important fundamental unit of society, but too many parents are forced to choose between family obligations and professional responsibilities. In years past, it was common for a middle-class family to live comfortably on one income. But as we have seen over the generations, only a shadow of the American dream remains. Both parents are often forced to work to pay for necessities. This makes it extremely difficult for families to care for sick children or elderly parents. These families shouldn't have to forfeit a paycheck when an emergency arises out of their control. Numerous studies show increased brain development among infants whose parents are able to spend more time with them because of paid family leave. Fortunately, many employers have responded by providing alternative work arrangements and flexible schedules, allowing employees to spend more time with their families while companies are able to attract and retain quality workers. In the Working Families Tax Cut, Republicans and President Trump led the way by making permanent a tax credit to employers who voluntarily offer at least 2 weeks of paid family and medical leave to their employees. But there's much more that we could do. So my first question is to Ms. Schweer. Could you please give some examples of how states are incentivizing family formation through paid family leave?
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's really important, actually, on an element that you just mentioned. This sounds silly, but the average woman would like to have 2.6 children, and she's having 1.7. And when surveyed about why she's having less children than she wants, she says cost of childcare, fear of financial insecurity, and lack of paid leave. And what we've seen over the last decade is states across the country in different ways increase access and provide programs to paid leave that are really helping reduce that anxiety that is holding women back from the family formation that they want to have. And then the important part of if they are, if and when they do have a child, being able to bond with that child, being able to breastfeed that child, reducing maternal health and mental health issues that might come from the stress of not having time with that baby. We also see some awesome data on dads. If a dad is present for the birth and first few days of the child's life, he releases this love potion called oxytocin and falls more in love with the baby and the mother, which creates connectivity amongst the family. And as a lot of data shows, if a dad is an active participant in the child's life, long-term outcomes really improve. So what we're seeing across states is different types of coverage on the paid leave side, which is increasing the ability for parents to take time with their children.
Thank you, and you stated that so beautifully. What are some of the ways that Congress, this is for Ms. Squire, what are some of the ways that Congress can encourage more private sector participation in paid family leave without implementing another unfunded federal mandate?
So NASWA is the nonpartisan association of all the state workforce agencies. So our states really each have their own unique labor markets and their own unique policy priorities. So for the states, they really need to focus on what works best for the individuals in their states.
Mm-hmm. And my last question is for Ms. Kessler. The latest figures indicate that 27% of private sector employees have access to paid family leave, although this is significantly higher than 13% that was 10 years ago. What changes in the workforce have you seen that might explain this increase in coverage?
Thank you. Great question. The workplace has changed dramatically and workers have changed. Employees are working much longer beyond retirement years. So they are juggling with a chronic illness and also have to take care of an aging parent. They need more leave than past. And also we have a great deal of challenges with childcare. So I think all combined, it's been really difficult on American workers, and we really need to address this.
Yes, important subject. Thank you all. And I yield back.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Wisconsin be able to ask questions.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll go to Mr. Grothman from Wisconsin.
My best buddy, thank you. We appreciate it. Ms. Squire, we have a question for you. The Unemployment Insurance Interstate Connections Network gives us timely information to unemployment insurance staff at the Department of Labor and the states investigating claims made in multiple states. Can you describe this system and whether a similar approach could be applied to the paid leave program?
Thank you for that question. So the ICON, or Interstate Connection Network, is used in unemployment insurance, and it's basically just a system where states can talk with each other and share confidential data. So in the unemployment insurance world, if an individual has wages in 2 different states, then those wages and other claim information is available to both states, and rules that are set out ahead of time help coordinate which state pays the claim and how the wages are apportioned. So a similar system could be used in the paid family medical leave space, and I think that that's an area that the I-Plan certainly discusses and that the states would be interested in working on.
Okay. What are states currently doing to ensure that their paid family leave programs are not bastions for fraud and abuse?
States currently do a number of things on their own to identify, make sure that the individual is identity-proofed, and there are a lot of things that individual states are doing. However, by working together, there could be even more fraud prevention. So, for example, states could submit suspicious actor information to a data hub or could share information about claims so that we could make sure that that claim that you're paying is the only claim for that individual, that multiple claims could be flagged, and I think there would be a lot of possibility to increase fraud prevention by the states working together in collaboration.
Could you give me an example of somebody fraudulently abusing the system?
Well, it could be that someone files a claim in 2 states. That could be an example.
Okay. Ms. Kessler, we'll give you a question too. Each child coming to the world is born under different circumstances, and working parents are faced with varying challenges. Can you talk about the Society for Human Resource Management's ongoing work in the family paid leave space?
Yes, so parental leave is really critical to answer for that. Again, lower income workers are not well equipped to handle time off without. The employees overall have to receive, again, the support for the time off that they need, but also as it relates to the, sorry, I need a moment. And for the sake of time, I can have someone get back with you on that.
Okay.
I apologize.
If businesses implement paid family leave for their employees, are there benefits they see?
Yes, they're, again, hiring and attracting the best possible workers, retaining those workers. It definitely helps our economy grow, but it also allows a path for us to expand such opportunities and grow other organizations.
I'll switch, they're my prepared questions, but I'll switch to a different question. Any one of you guys can grab it. I used to do taxes a million years ago, and one of the things I noticed is sometimes women would work at a job, and by the time you took into account the daycare, they were almost tax-wise losing money. But I think they took that job because in our society, sometimes there is completely unfair and unmerited criticism of the stay-at-home mom. When I think of some of these women, can you comment on that? That sometimes I think women who would do a fantastic job raising their children are working when it's not, doesn't even provide a financial benefit.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I think that we live in a country where two-income households are necessary. I think we've
Well, we won't talk about that because probably ones where you're actually losing money. Does one of you others want to comment on that?
I'm happy to. First of all, I think stay-at-home motherhood or parenthood is one of the hardest jobs, and in society we don't value it in the same way we used to, and I hope that will change. But I do think that a lot of women, there are a lot of women who are primary financial providers for their household, or their financial providing is really important to their household well-being. And they're also thinking about their long-term retirement savings and savings over the time of life, and the losses they're having in these early years of childcare might not help their annual balance sheet, but they help their long-term economics when they do want to return to the workforce. One of the things that we've seen in the gender pay gap, like the women versus men's pay gap, is actually not gender, it's motherhood in many cases. And so I think there are some women that are making that choice to lose that annual income, but hoping that it will serve long-term in their retirement benefits or their economic potential in the out years.
Great.
Thank you for
Thank you.
indulging me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Now we will move back to closing remarks. And before I begin my remarks that I had prepared, I do want to recognize just what happened here today. We moved very quickly through questioning. It's a busy day. Obviously, State of the Union is this evening. Other members have other obligations. And so some of our members were running a little bit behind. But I would like to recognize the fact that I appreciate bipartisan recognition on this topic, and Chairman Scott, or Ranking Member Scott, his willingness to offer unanimous consent. It's a small thing around here, but it's a significant thing. It shows that I have a great relationship with him. It shows that there are times when we can work together in bipartisan ways so that everybody can be heard. And on an important topic like this, I think that's very important. So just want to recognize that and thank Ranking Member Scott, even though he stepped out, for his willingness to let our other members ask their questions. Today's hearing is highlighting the importance of paid leave benefits for employees when expanding their family or caring for a loved one. As discussed, we have heard some topics for possible improvement at both the state and federal level. And as a father of two myself, it's an important personal issue for me. While my family has benefited from sufficient employer-sponsored paid leave benefits, others may not have access to paid leave benefits when they need them. We need to do everything that we can to make sure that we foster a policy environment across this country where, whether it is at the state level, in private-public partnerships, or even by doing things here at the federal level, we can continue to advance paid family leave across this country. As we heard from Ms. Schweer, she stated in her testimony that paid leave can lead to positive workforce impacts, including improvements to female labor force participation rates and in the broader economy. Employers experience reduced turnover and recruitment costs, boosted retention, and improved economic stability, all of which can support productive, thriving communities. We and our Republican caucus have been advancing these pro-family policies. We did so in the Working Families Tax Cut by including the 45S paid family leave tax credit, which was made permanent in that legislation. And that is a positive development. It is obviously not everything that we're looking for, but it does continue to advance our cause for more paid family leave across this country. Now there's obviously more that needs to be discussed and actually done on this topic, and so I want to commend the bipartisan working group that we have here in Congress. I see Representative Bice, who has stepped in to join us here today, one of the co-chairs of that effort, and we discussed the I-Plan, or the Interstate Paid Leave Action Plan, which is an important proposal to harmonize standards across states so that employees can access leave when they need it. It also helps reduce instances of fraud and maintain the integrity of paid leave programs across state lines. Again, while this may not be everything that everybody is looking for, I think it is a positive development and a positive step forward that Congress should be taking. So again, I do just want to thank everybody for testifying here today. I think it has been shown in this hearing that there is bipartisan recognition of the challenge that working families are facing. There may be partisan differences in how we want to proceed and advance policy that will help those working families, but I am confident that by working together in a bipartisan way, we can continue to help working families all across this country with relief that they need, and that is the way that we are going to achieve real outcome and results, is by doing so in a bipartisan way. Because if we want to proceed in just a simply partisan fashion, the next time Congress flips, that party that wasn't in power at that time is more likely to try to remove it or not extend those benefits. But if we have bipartisanship on an important topic like this, I believe that we can make long-standing, lasting change for the American people in the paid leave space. So just want to thank all of our witnesses again for taking the time to come here today to the subcommittee. And without objection, there is no further business before the committee, and the subcommittee now stands adjourned. Thank you all.